Hi guys, hi beautiful people, you're welcome back to my YouTube channel, and this is a continuation of my Miss World 2026 coverage. And of course guys, the top model first segment, you know, yeah, top model first segment, or top model competition. Yes, the first segment of the top model competition was held yesterday, and the ladies showcased the different designers from Vietnam. And I must tell you guys that I was a little bit underwhelmed with some of the designs, especially the fact that most of them came out in ball gowns, which was kind of like hideous, to their carriage, their parasela, and all that. Okay, so these are what I'm going to be rating in this particular video, and also a very, very interesting topic that came up. Yes, we're hearing some racial discrimination of the African countries at this year's competition, and it's so sad. Okay, yeah, guys, I'm so sad hearing about these racial discriminations. I'm going to be talking about that in this particular video. So if you want to continue watching, don't touch that dial. Keep on. For the fashion show that showcased the ladies coming out in different designs, although the show started a little bit late because of heavy rain fall and some other logistics issues, so we had to wait for another 1 hour or so, 1 hour going to 2 hours before the show started. And the ladies came out in evening wears from different designers, wedding gowns, and some other designs that was kind of flattering to some of them and was not flattering to some of them, because of course Nigeria came out in the ball gown, the wedding ball gown, of which I was not really a fan of, because it didn't allow her to show off her her stage presence, her catwalking skills and all that. It was kind of underwhelming for her because she was carrying this huge ball gown walking the stage, and I'm like, wow, I was not really a fan of of that, because I was like, I didn't want her to be in that group of ladies that came out in the wedding gown. But all the same, the gowns are beautiful. The gowns are beautiful, and it depends on how you're able to carry the gown, because of course it's a top model competition. So even if you are told to wear a certain clothes that you don't like, but it's how you carry the clothes, your carriage in the clothes, that really matters. And I feel like Nigeria's carriage was, I don't know, she was not really giving me that courage that I wanted, because of course the ball gown was not really flattering on her. That is just it. I thought she would have done better, or I think she would have done better in a fitted gown than in that ball gown. That is my own thoughts. Okay, you are also you are entitled to your own thoughts, but I think for me personally, from the African region, I would say that I have my standouts aside from Nigeria. She's among my top 5 standouts, but I have other standouts as well. Somalia did very well. I saw Botswana, so many other countries too that actually slayed in their own way. But for me, I look at your courage. I look at the way you carry the gown. I look at your stage presence. I look at your aura. I look at your facial structure. I look at your facial, the way you carry your what they call it? Is it facial structure or whatever? I don't know the word to use. Your face card. Yes, that's the word. I look at your face card, because when it comes to modeling, you're not allowed to overly smile. You're not allowed to overly be too serious. You just have to maintain that cool demeanor, because the emphasis naturally should be on the dress, on the way you carry the dress, and also your facial expression in carrying that dress. You are allowed to smile, but not too much. Not that you now be smiling sheepishly and be looking at the camera. That is my own opinion. So I judge these ladies based on all of that, and I'll tell you that for me, the top two for me from the African region. Yes, I'll talk about the top two before I talk about the others. Okay. So now, for me, Tanzania is my number two. Yes, is it number two or number one? Let me just say, okay, the top two are Tanzania and Equatorial Guinea. For me, they did it for me. Tanzania came out in this ball game. Tanzania came out in this ball game, but at least she was able to embody it very well. I love the turn that she made. That turn was very beautiful, and the way she did her hand gesture, her facial expression, the way she carried the gown with effortless grace. I think she is she's the top two from the African region for me. I loved her in this gown. And number two for me is uh Equatorial Guinea. I love this fitted gown on her. I felt like she embodied the dress and she came out on stage and did the needful. I also love her facial structure. She had this modeling look, which I feel, yes, she can move forward into the top 30, that will compete later on. Because of course, you guys know that after this after this first segment, there's another segment of the top modeling competition where they're going to call up the top 30 or so from that made it from this particular segment into the next segment. Okay, so for me, I'm seeing Tanzania, Equatorial Guinea making that list, because yes, Equatorial Guinea was very flawless in her presentation. Now, coming to Nigeria's performance, I loved her wedding gown. It was beautiful with the silver linings and all that. And you guys know that silver is actually her color. Okay, she shines very well in silver. But to me, I don't know, I was not particularly a fan of her work in this gown. And for me, it just kind of hid her courage and all that. I don't know, I was not really a fan of her work in this gown. That's just my own opinion. I think, I don't know if it's the gown or it's the whole concept, I don't know. But I think she's amongst my top 5. Definitely she's going to make it to the top 30 and she needs to up her game in the next segment. But for me, I think she was just, her performance was average. Yeah, these are the few ones I want to talk about from the African region. Like I think I mentioned, apart from Tanzania, Equatorial Guinea, Nigeria, I also mentioned Somalia, I mentioned Botswana, and a host of others. But for me personally, these are my the top 2 standouts. I've already mentioned my top 2 standouts, and I think those ones, they really did better than the rest of the others from the African continent. So guys, the next gist we have on this particular Miss World coverage is the fact that there were some reports of racial discrimination of the African countries over there in Vietnam, and I'm like, what is really going on? Miss World is a pageant that I have high regard for. Okay, so when I heard this particular information, I was really sad, because I'm like, Miss World is a pageant that has been fair even to the African countries. Okay, so we've had that amount of fairness in the long run, and even if we've had situations in the past, but this particular racial discrimination in Miss World has not taken place for a very long time. So I was really sad hearing about this particular news. And according to the reports, they said some of the African countries, in fact, the African countries were taken on an excursion to the farmland, while the other girls from the other regions were taken on an excursion to the golf course. And I was like, what is really going on? Like, seriously. A lot of persons were like, oh, that they also noticed that they hardly post the African countries on the official page of Miss World. There's been some racial discrimination in terms of putting the African countries in the spotlight. So many persons came up with their own their own experiences with Miss World coverage this year, and I'm like, what is really going on? I thought that this was a thing of the past, and with what was said about the allegations, I saw pictures. Okay, so it was not like it was it was just made up. I saw pictures of some of the girls going to the golf course and the African ladies going to the farmlands, and I'm like, what are they going to the farmland? Of course it's an excursion, and of course they have to showcase the cultural heritage and the parts of Vietnam to the ladies. But why take the African ladies to the farmland? Okay, I'm not saying it's not a good thing, at least for them to experience some things, but why take the African ladies to the farmland and take the other ladies to the golf course? Okay. I don't know. I cannot really say that, oh, it was intentional, but I think all this will, it's for me, for somebody like me, I felt like, are they saying the African ladies are only good for farm work, or good for farming issues or farming related issues, while the other ladies are not? I don't know. It's just my thoughts though. But I think that their reservations are valid, because of course it's not a good news that I want. It's not a good news that I want to hear, and it's so sad, guys. It's so sad that Miss World, being the most prestigious pageant, is having, it's going through all of this again, because I thought by now I would have gone past all this. Guys, like, what do you think about this particular situation? And do you think that people are justified by raising these concerns about the way the African countries are being treated. What do you think should be done to remedy the situation, and what are your general thoughts on this matter? Last gist for today is the Miss World new format. Okay, yes, we have a new format for Miss World. Miss World has released the new judging format. Okay, and I'm going to break it down for you guys, because of course I know some of you must have seen the new judging format and you want to know how, and how it's going to work this year. I think there are some slight changes to this year's judging format, unlike last year where we had top 20 and top 8. This year we are going to have top 12, or like last year where we had top 8. Okay, so that is it. That's how it's going to look like. So it's still the same top 40 format. Okay, so but I think going towards the end there were some slight changes that was made to the judging format. Okay, so I'm going to put it on the screen for you guys now for you to see how it's going to be. So now top 40 we comprised of talent and sports winners who qualify regardless of their continental groups. Okay, so you guys know how they've been doing it before. Talent and sports winners also automatically get to the top 40. So we're going to be getting 10 contestants from Africa, 10 from American and Caribbeans, 10 from Asia and Oceania, and 10 from Europe. Okay, so that will now accumulate to 40 accumulate to the top 40 countries that will move into the semi-final, that will move on to the the next stage. Okay, all right, so now from the top 40 they're going to come down to top 20, where we have the Beauty with a Purpose winner, fast track, multimedia winner, head-to-head winner, top model winner. Okay, so those places, those countries will have a place in the top 20. So the judges will now select 15 out of the 20. So it's only 5 spots in the top 20 that are from the fast track event, while the remaining 15 will be the judges' selection. Okay, so the judges can select that 15 from random countries. From that top 15, top 15 added to the top 25 winners from the fast track event, it will now be top 20. From top 20 we have top 12, and we're going to be seeing two winners from Africa, Americas, Asia, Europe, and of course People's Choice. There's something called People's Choice now that they've included in the pageant. That one is about the top 2 selected by the public voting, and also top 2 selected by the judges for Beauty with a Purpose. Okay, so they're going to have 2 Beauty with a Purpose winners in the top 12, 2 selected by public voting, and also 2 each from the Africa's continent, Americas and Caribbean, Oceania and Europe. Okay, so that will now make the top 12. Now the finals will now be the top 6. Of course, from top 12 to top 6, where we'll now have our Miss World winner. Alright, so the top 6 will constitute of Beauty with a Purpose winner, Africa winner, Europe winner, Asia and Oceania winner, Europe winner, and People's Choice winner. Okay, so that is how it's going to look like this year. So I think they want a lot more representation. That's why they did it like this. Okay, so the top 6 will now have the Continental Queens and the Beauty with a Purpose winner. Finally, we will have the People's Choice winner in the top 6. From that top 6 now, we're going to have the Miss World winner, first runner-up, and second runner-up. Okay, so that is how the format is going to look like this year. So like I said, I think there's a lot of changes in this format, because previously I don't think we used to have a Beauty with a Purpose winner in the top 6, and also People's Choice Awards. This is like a new development. Okay, People's Choice Awards is now a new development. So of course they want to encourage voting in Miss World. They are looking for money. There's no party that is not looking for money. So you have to start voting for your candidate, for your candidate in the People's Choice category, and that particular candidate will go all the way to the finals. Okay, and also the Beauty with the Purpose winner is going all the way to the finals, to also include the continental winners, okay, from Africa, Oceania, Europe, and Latin America, and American region and Oceania, okay, where they usually do it before. So this is a very, very different format from the one we usually have, and I feel like they want a lot of inclusivity in this particular this year's pageant. I think that's why they included all this, and yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting. Yes, I'm seeing a very interesting event because, of course, it's going to be the battle of who is going to win the best, in the People's Choice Award, because I think that's where the battle is going to be. Who is going to vote for their candidates to fast track them to the finals? So it's going to be a very, very, very keenly contested pageant because, of course, as we are speaking to you now, you have to continue voting, start voting, because your vote will lead your candidate to the finals. That is what it's going to be this year. A lot of persons, a lot of countries will start voting for their candidates. And please, Nigerians, come out en masse and vote for Soye, please, because of course, with our vote, we can fast track Soye to the top 6, final top 6. Okay, that is it, guys. Thank you so much for staying put to the end of today's video. Yes, of today's Miss World coverage. Okay, so guys, if you please subscribe to my channel, click on the bell notification button beside subscribe button to get notified whenever I post new videos. And of course, we're going to be continuing on our Miss World coverage. So yeah, we have so many events coming up. We have the talent show, we have the beauty they propose, we have the the other competitions coming up, and of course I'm going to be showcasing it to you guys here on this channel. All right, so guys, I'll see you all in another video coming up very soon. Bye.